السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال أيضا: يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. وقال: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. وبعد. Indeed, all praise and glory is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we seek His aid and His forgiveness, we believe in Him and rely upon Him. We seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's protection and refuge against the evil of our own souls and against the evil of our impious deeds. Whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, none can misguide. And whomsoever is misguided, none can guide him except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we testify and we bear witness to the fact that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is alone without any partner. And we also testify and bear witness to the fact that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's last messenger and his perfect worshipper. My dear respected brothers and sisters, in today's khutbah, I want to reflect on one hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we know that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one of the qualities and characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with was jawam al-kalim. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was given jawam al-kalim, which means that his sentences would be short in structure, vast in meaning. So I want to take one hadith, and inshallah I'll narrate it first in Arabic and then English, and take it piece by piece, bit by bit, and we'll break it down inshallah. The Prophet ﷺ, this narration I'm going to be going through is in Ibn Majah, but there's also parts of it that I'll be explaining from Sahih Muslim as well. He said, Al-Mu'min al-Qawi khayrun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-Mu'min al-Da'if wa fi kullin khayr. Ihris ala ma yanfa'uk. In the riwayah fi Sahih Muslim, wasta'in billah. ولا تعجز فإن غلبك أمر فقل قدر الله وما شاء فعل وإياك واللوم فإن اللوم تفتح عمل الشيطان. It was narrated on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the stronger believer is more beloved and better to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weaker believer. But there's goodness in both of them. And then he said, strive to seek that which will benefit you. And then the narration of Sahih Muslim, and seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do not feel helpless. If something overwhelms you, then say, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. This is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah decreed whatever He willed, and He does whatever He wants. And beware of saying, if only, because if only opens the door for shaitan. So inshallah we'll take this hadith and we'll break it down. So the first part of the hadith is where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, Al-Mu'min al-Qawi khayrun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-Mu'min al-Da'if wa fi kullin khayr. That the stronger believer is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak believer, although there's goodness in both of them. Strong in what sense? Right? The ulama, they have differing opinions, but most of the ulama and the mufassirin and the shurrah and the ones who comment on hadith, they say in every sense. Right? Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, if we're strong in all of these aspects, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes to see this strength being utilized for Islam, for the betterment of Islam and the Muslims and all of mankind. So if a person is financially strong, physically strong, and they're using those blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon them for the betterment of their community, the betterment of justice, and working and calling people towards what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to see that. And He said, وَفِي كُلٍّ خَيْرٍ. But there's goodness in all of them. In all believers, there's goodness. What we also take from this part of hadith are that believers are at different levels. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this when He mentioned Surah Hadid, وَمَا لَكُمْ أَلَّا تُنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا وكلا وعد الله الحسنى والله بما تعملون خبير. In Surah Al-Hadid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking, even the companions, radiallahu anhum, they were at different levels. He says, and why do you not spend in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belongs the heritage of the heavens and the earth? Not equal among you are those who spent before the conquest of Mecca and fought, and those who did after. The people who are the first Muslims had a higher status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than those that came later on. So we know even among the companions, there's levels. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. But to all of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised the best reward, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is well acquainted with what you do. Even in Surah Al-Fath, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the companions, there were some companions when they came into Islam, their iman was a little shaky. But through the companionship and through the environment, their iman became strong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this as this is the description that He has given them in the Injil. And He mentions, and their description in the Gospel is as plants which produces its offshoots and strengthens them, so they grow firm and stand upon their stalks, delighting the farmers. Right? When you look at a crop, it might start off weak, but as it gets the environment, it becomes strong. And these are the companions radiallahu anhum. So in this hadith, we realize and we understand that we all have different levels of iman. But there's goodness in every Muslim. If all of us were the same, then Islam would be a little bit different and our aptitude would be different. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, each of them had certain talents, skills, resources that they utilized, and alhamdulillah, everybody benefited from that. وَفِي كُلٍّ خَيْرٍ. Right? Always work towards being a strong believer in every sense of the word, and this is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so the next question someone might ask, how do we become stronger believers? The Prophet ﷺ then said, إِحْرِصْ عَلَى مَا يَنْفَعُ. That strive to seek that which will benefit you, وَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ, and seek Allah's help, وَلَا تَعْجِزْ, and do not feel helpless. So in this are many benefits, right? Number one is that one of the tricks of shaitan is that he makes us so preoccupied with things that bring us no benefit in terms of our dunya and in terms of our akhirah. And then it consumes all of our time, it consumes our energy, consumes our resources, so that when we think about, okay, now I should spend time with my family, or now I should read more Quran, then you're so tired and exhausted. Or we'll say that, subhanAllah, I've seen this, right? That when sometimes people, they'll say, look, our kids are young. And while they're young, they'll be going to different things, they'll be occupied with their school and stuff. So I'm going to put in a little bit more effort when they're young, and I'll spend time with them when they grow up. What happens? You get used to a certain lifestyle, and then they get up, as they get older, the amount of time that they want to spend with their parents becomes less and less. So, ihris ala ma yanfa'uk. Focus, strive on those things that will benefit you in terms of your dunya and your akhirah. The most important thing that we need to do as Muslims is to do the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the purpose of our existence. This is the purpose of our creation. So every Muslim should have dedicated time to realize how to do that properly and examine themselves to see, are we putting in that effort? Also, in terms of the dunya, going back to the first part of the hadith, if we are working, reading, learning, training on how to improve, this is all considered something which is beneficial. If you are a parent, learning about children and how to be a better parent will be beneficial. If you are married and learning about how to be a better husband or wife, this will be beneficial. And do not ever feel helpless, right? Ask Allah to help you. Sometimes when you think that, okay, look, I don't even know where to start. How do I strengthen my iman? How do I strengthen myself physically? How do I strengthen myself financially? How do I strengthen myself socially, politically, whatever it may be? Wasta'in billah. Seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased and content with us. Ask Allah to help you. Ask Allah to help you be a better servant. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you to be a better father, a better husband, a better employee, a better employer. Whatever position that you're in, always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. The Prophets alayhi salatu wasalam, they did many, many great things. But what is the key to their success is that they would say, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Anything that I was able to do, it was with the help and support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The people of Jannah, when they get into Jannah, they won't say it's because I prayed, I did this, I did that. No. Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana li hada. Wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. They'll say, Alhamdulillah, all praises for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who guided us towards this. Had it not been for His guidance, we would not have been guided. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help and never feel that you're alone. Allah is always there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help and support is close. And our iman in the promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala motivate us to go forward. Right, think about the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. He went through many obstacles and challenges at different stages in his life. But his iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take care of him, motivated him to continue. And gave him the confidence that no matter things right now might seem like they're bleak and difficult and challenging, but in the end they'll be okay. Even the Prophet ﷺ, there's so many ahadith and ayat that were revealed in Mecca where the Prophet ﷺ is telling the companions radiallahu anhum that I don't fear poverty for you, I fear that the dunya will become open and accessible to you. When the Prophet ﷺ was leaving from Mecca to Medina, and there was a bounty on his head, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, He told Suraq ibn Malik, one of the people that was chasing him, how is it going to be when you have access to the treasures and the bangles of the leader of the Persians? And the Persians at that time were considered a superpower. Imagine how difficult the day of Taif must have been for the Prophet ﷺ. And this comes to the next part. Whatever happens to us in life, it's according to the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? It's according to the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِنْ غَلَبَكَ أَمْرٌ فَقُلْ قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. If something happens to you, you go through hardship, you go through adversity, you go through trials, tribulations, say, this is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If something happens, you really want something, you don't get it for whatever reason, say, this is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah does whatever He wants. Going back to Taif, right? Had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at that time it was difficult. But the Prophet ﷺ put his hope and faith and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the Muslims had settled in Taif, then we wouldn't have Medina. And when the Muslims interacted with the people Ansar in Medina, they made such an impact on them that there's narrations that some of the companions, the Ansar, said, we've never seen people like the people of Medina. We were afraid that they're going to take all of the ajr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they've opened up their houses. They've opened up everything that they had for us, their brothers in faith. So at that time, yes, it's difficult, it's challenging. But in the end, remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Alim, Al-Hakim subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one that's all knowledgeable. He's the one that's all wise. So put your faith and trust in Him. As I mentioned, there are certain things, situations, circumstances that are completely out of our control. We may want certain things and think that they are good for us. But part of our faith is to accept the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be content with that. That doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean it's easy, but that's our iman will help us get through that, inshallah ta'ala. And then the Prophet ﷺ also gave us advice. Real practical advice that will help us deal with some of those things, get through those difficult times. He said, وَإِيَّاكَ وَاللَّوْ. Beware of saying, if only. فَإِنَّ اللَّوْ تَفْتَحُ عَمَلَ الشَّيْطَانِ. Because if only, when you say if only, it opens the door to shaitan. What does that mean? There's nothing that a person can do to change their past, avoid circumstances that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for them. So if a person dwells on that and says, if only I had done this differently, then the results would have been different, they wouldn't have been different. Because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote on the person. And if a person keeps thinking, if this, then that would have happened, then we're playing into the traps of shaitan. We can learn from the past, but we can't change the past. Whatever befalls us, for whatever reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-wise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all knowledgeable. Sometimes we go through adversity and it makes us stronger. And this is the way that we need to look at it. We learn from our past, but don't think that you can escape from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us all among the strong believers in every sense of the word. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the ability to focus on those things that are beneficial. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He helps us and guides us to that which is most pleasing to Him. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله على فضله وإحسانه وأشكره على توفيقه امتنانه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبعد. As most of you know, alhamdulillah, District 203 and 204 this next week that they have coming up is spring break. And I just wanted to share a hadith from the Sayyidah of the Prophet ﷺ that talks about the importance of having balance in our lives. So, Hamdulillah radiallahu anhu, he said, we were with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and we spoke about paradise and hell until it was as if we could see them. Then I got up and I went to my family and children and I laughed and I played with them. Then I remembered how we had been. And I went out and met Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and said, I have become a hypocrite. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, we all do that. Meaning he told them the situation, that when we're with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our iman is high. But when we go back to our families, we forget about some of the times what we talked about with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we play with our families, our children, and our iman comes lower. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, we all do that. So Hamdullah radiallahu anhu went and mentioned that to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, "Oh Hamdullah, if you are always as you are with me, the angels would shake hands with you in your beds and in your streets. Oh Hamdullah, there is a time for this and a time for that. Sarah was Sarah." So the time to have fun, time to have balance, right? Time when our iman is high, time when our iman goes a little bit low, but to have balance in our lives. So spring break is a time where, as a teacher, working with students and working with other teachers, we're all ready for the end of the school year, right? So we all need to refresh, relax, regroup. So inshallah, take this opportunity to have some fun with your children. Take this opportunity to have halal fun. Explain to them that Ramadan is only a couple months away. And this is something that, as the ulama have said, that Ramadan is the time for people to plant the seeds. Sha'ban is the time for people to water the seeds. And, Rajab is the time for people to plant the seeds. Sha'ban is the time for people to water the seeds. And Ramadan is the time to harvest the crops. We're now in the month of Rajab. Okay? So increase in a little bit of ibadah, recitation of the Quran, coming to the masjid, fasting, in whatever capacity that you can. Take advantage of this break, right? Have fun, but make sure the salah is given the utmost importance. And inshallah ta'ala, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us in these next few months and allow us all to reach the month of Ramadan. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He guides us and our children to that which is most pleasing to Him. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ease the suffering of people all over the world. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات اللهم اعز الإسلام والمسلمين وذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الدين ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم فاذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون أقيموا الصلاة